Wonderful. Thank you, Samantha. Okay, so my portion of the presentation, we're going on to quest two, which is the part where you are beginning to put words on the page. So whereas in quest one, we were looking for the sources and the information that's going to like undergird the argument. Now this is like the beginning of the paper writing process for most people. So, as we go into it, the objectives that the students are needing to fulfill here is they've got to generate those ideas, get something down on the page, and then make sure that they're in a logical order so that it makes sense. Within that is that ever-present task of effectively paraphrasing versus just stringing together quotations, which is a common pitfall in student writing. And then within that paradigm, you've paraphrased. You also want to make sure that you're crediting sources appropriately so that work is given the credit that it's due to the people who did that work. And providing credit is also about like giving the chain of evidence so that you can say, here's the conclusion that I came to based on this other information, and here's where that information is, and here's where you can go look at it yourself so that I know that I can trust the person who wrote the paper. So let's look at these objectives as we go through. And some of the strengths that students bring to this is that they're understanding what's the basic essay organization. They've done the 5 paragraph essays. They've done, specific prompts more narrowly defined. But this is usually the case where it's like, okay, write a research paper, and it's maybe a much longer project than they have done before. And that like contributes to that feeling of sudden raise of expectations, I think. But one of the strengths that even combats that, I think, is reminding students of the interest and curiosity that they bring to their class and to themselves as professionals. I think that often there's a feeling of being like spoon-fed information where like the teacher is going to tell you what to do, what to think, and encouraging students to come to their own conclusions and um trying to make an argument that isn't just regurgitating what someone's done before. I feel like that's the task, and that encouraging students to have a strong sense of themselves being able to grow in that direction is really important for this part of the task of writing. So a first set of tools, you've got the blank page, terrifying as that is. And one of my best advices is don't fear the bad first draft. Please appreciate this dumpster fire on the slide that sometimes it feels that way when I begin writing and I'm like, this is all terrible. What am I even doing? But it sometimes it has to be terrible at the beginning, and you want to just get the ideas down versus like sometimes I feel like people try to write the sentence that's going to be in the final paper as like that's the way that they wrote the sentence from the outset. And instead, like let it be bad. Worry about that later. Get the ideas down, then organize them. And a second idea I want to introduce here is this idea of level of zoom. How close to the issue are you? And so if you zoom out, step away from your project, you can see what's the structure. You can compare your structure against published works. So if you're doing like a study and you want to do like a method results discussion kind of structure, you can compare against that. Um, or like qualitative research might have different sort of structures that you're going to compare against. And one of my favorite tips is that when you're in your word processing program, if you use the style menu to format your headings, it will allow you to see the overall outline. Like you can look at it in like the navigation pane, you can collapse it, and that will let you kind of have that bird's eye view, as well as making sure that your headings are done consistently. We have our sample papers on the APA style website have the headings reformatted to look like the APA style format of them, or like you can also do that yourself pretty easily. But that's a great way to sort of get that big picture idea. So if you recall, the next like objective as we're going from blank page to sentences written is the task of paraphrasing. And we know that most students over rely on quotation. And I think because quotation maybe feels easier, like all you have to do is copy and paste and maybe as far as the student's concerned, copy and paste and like put the URL of the thing that you were on and be like, well, that's good enough, right? And that's a start. You want instead to encourage students to only use quotations sparingly. And the list of when might that be from us is like, if you want the exact definition of something, by all means, quote. Or if the way that the original author said something is very memorable, like it's like a pithy phrasing, or like you want to respond to the exact wording, then use a quotation. But as you'll see, as you read more and more research, almost everything is paraphrased in APA style. Like quotations are rare. And seeing for students that that's the direction they need to go in is important because paraphrasing means that you have to have thought about it more deeply and you more deeply understand it in order to say it in your own ways, whereas a quotation is just button clicks. So let's look into that more. So one of the steps that people move through, they're trying to quote all the time. They say, oh, you need me to paraphrase. It's called patchwriting. And patchwriting is when you're changing only a few words or you're like substituting synonyms in to make it seem different enough. And that's maybe the bridge on the way of where we're going, but it's not the goal. Some tips to avoid patchwriting is to refocus the sentence. So think about what's the most important idea for me to express, and then can I put that idea in an important position in the sentence? And so maybe I read a article about leadership at work offices, and I say if you have good leaders, the employees are happy, and if the leadership is lacking, the employees are miserable and they're absent all the time. Maybe the article that I read that from was focusing on the leadership experience, but maybe my example is about the employees. And so I might start my sentence focusing on the employees, which recontextualizes and refocuses the sentence. It's all well and good for me to say this, but a great way to practice is we have a set of activities on our website called the paraphrasing and citation activities that walks you through the idea of paraphrasing at of a selected work at different levels, like writing a paraphrase of like a single sentence or of multiple sentences or of the whole idea. And so that is I highly recommend it, a great activity to just practice. And it's got an answer key in it. So you can see like our idea of what a good paraphrase might be. But of course, there's many ways to write a sentence. Okay. And then our last tool here is the crediting aspect. And here, the idea I think is really important is to contextualize the idea of crediting within the writing process. Broadly speaking, if we zoom out again, what's happening is you read something, you identify an idea, and that you're like, that's the idea. I need to communicate that and cite that. You're gonna write a sentence about it, or maybe multiple sentences, do the reference list entry, add the in-text citation, and then repeat that for other sources as you go. And this infographic on the screen is available for you to link to in your LMS or classroom websites. It's called the 6 Steps to Proper Citation infographic. It's on our website. And I like this one because it's showing you a very zoomed out perspective. Because within this, what we're trying to help people do is take that read, write, cite process and break it into that concrete scaffolded steps. So it's not just like, write me a 20-page paper and you don't know where to start. And definitely emphasizing you have to cite while you write. Do not leave placeholders. Keep information tied to the source because you will forget where you got that from. Or you might start thinking, maybe that was my idea and it wasn't. And so I feel like that's like, those are some of the top tips I have. And a great activity from our website that goes with this is our research article activity. We've talked about this one in a lot of webinars, but this one takes you through finding something, writing the reference and the in-text citation and then writing sentences about it. So that's a great way to like let students experience this read, write, cite idea in a very like specific environment where they can all be working on the same activity together. Okay, so now we are going to move into the polishing process, which Jasmine is going to share with you about.